Hi guys, how you doing? This is just a very quick, hopefully quick, which is hard for me when it comes to talking, but a quick sort of summary of nutrition in terms of what you've been asked to do so far. And we're just going to cover some of the main basic points that we discussed at the seminar. So I'm going to try and fit as much as I can into 15 minutes. It has to be less than 15 minutes or I won't upload to YouTube. So what we discussed, or what we told you to do, or have asked you to do, is to aim for 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. We've asked you to do this for a number of reasons. The first one comes down to the fact that it's more satiating. So in other words, it makes you fuller for longer. Okay, and we're going on the principle here that, as we know, if you are overweight or struggling with body fat levels, it fundamentally comes down to the fact that you're eating more than you're expending in energy. You're eating more than you're burning off, and that's why your body fat is higher than you maybe want it to be. So fundamentally, we know that you need to eat less than you burn to lose body fat, and that is the first law of thermodynamics, and it's the basis of every diet club really that's ever existed, Weight Watchers, etc. So basically, the message is to eat less, but the problem with that is it doesn't consider the mechanisms that make that task easier. And also, what we do know is there's something not quite right if all you need to do is tell someone to eat less, because in terms of diet clubs, statistically we know that 92% roughly of people that go in diet clubs end up the same weight or more so within 2 years. So there's something at play here, and it's probably because in the short term it's quite easy to restrict yourself quite for a few weeks or even a few months, but you can't do it forever. And often what happens is you don't learn how to work with your body, and then you just end up going back to old habits, and the weight piles back on. So the first thing we were trying to explain to folk was that in order to get on top of cravings and get on top of hunger and to try and control your body, you need to work with your body and work with physiology and work with the foods that help. And protein is one of the main ones that will help you do that because it increases satiety. Okay, so when it comes to hunger, there's only so much you can do to oppress that hunger yourself by telling yourself, I'm not going to eat, I'm just going to skip. You can't skip forever, and that's because of hormones. Okay, so for example, if you're going on a really low calorie diet, 1,000 calories, 1,200 calories, something like that, you will lose weight, obviously, because it's very low in calories. But hunger hormones will start to elevate and to a point where you can no longer control them, and no amount of willpower will help you, and you'll just end up eating lots of stuff like sugar and donuts and stuff because you'll be so hungry. So for example, ghrelin is one of the main hunger hormones, and what we know is that if the stomach is empty and the digestive tract is fairly empty, ghrelin secretion goes up, essentially telling you to eat. So what we also know is that following protein consumption, specifically, ghrelin levels drop more so than other macronutrients following the consumption of other macronutrients. So in other words, protein will literally affect the hunger hormones, and make it easier therefore for you to not feel hungry. Okay, so that's one of the main reasons for people that are overweight why protein is really the key, because it will start to get on top of a lot of the reasons that lead you to overeating in the first place. Okay. Also, when it comes to fat loss, you want to ensure, the desirable goal is to lose body fat and not muscle mass. So when you're in a deficit, you want to make sure that protein intake is high, because protein will help spare the muscle. Okay, so it will help protect the muscle from being used as energy, and it will ensure that what you're losing is primarily body fat. Consequently, though, that means that weight loss will be much slower. Okay, quick weight loss usually means that you're losing fat and muscle as well as water, which is undesirable really, and it can easily go back on in a very short space of time. So real fat loss takes longer. Okay, and if that's what you're trying to achieve, you need to remember that, and it requires patience, and it requires consistency, and it requires doing the things we're asking you to do every day, not just Monday to Thursday, right? Because you can very easily undo your good work in one day of madness, right? So that's where people tend to struggle: lack of consistency with protein intake and other foods. So it preserves muscle mass and it will stave off hunger. Okay, so that's one of the main 2 reasons why you have to eat more protein. Another thing we talked about was not weighing yourself. Okay, there's no point you weighing yourself, especially in the early periods, because new folk especially, it's called newbie gains. They tend to put on more muscle in the first sort of few months of training compared to people that have been training for years, and that means that you will offset some fat loss with some muscle gain, which will have an effect on the scales. The scales won't reflect your progress. For that reason, weight loss is not a transient thing, therefore you shouldn't weigh yourself regularly as if it is. Okay, so by all means, you weigh yourself every month if you really, really want to, but jumping on the scales every day or week is absolutely futile. Okay, don't do it. Ditch the scales. Right. Having said that, that doesn't mean that weight is irrelevant. Okay, and I think this is an important point I want to touch on. I think that some folk that have been training for a while now, maybe 6 months plus, if you know in yourself you've got quite a lot of body fat to lose, if you know you're sort of what we class as really overweight, and you know that for your height you're much heavier than you should be, there's only so much that the weight training and muscle mass can account for. Okay, and I think it can sometimes be easy to maybe hide behind that as an excuse a wee bit and say, but it's my weight's not come down, it's because I'm weight training and I put on muscle. It's not all muscle. There's no way that you wouldn't just continue to put on muscle. There has to come a point where you need to acknowledge that if you're not making any progress in terms of weight loss, if you've got quite a lot to lose, it's not because you're just keeping on putting on muscle. That it's simply that you're still not on top of your diet the way you should be, and therefore you need to really try and tie it in, get on top of it, because you've got the control and the power to do it. You just need to do it. Okay. In terms of the 2 grams of protein per body weight, that's actually not a lot. Okay, it might sound like a lot, or it might feel like a lot if you're not used to eating a lot of protein. But to put this in context, I've got a wee Blue Peter style. Here's something I made earlier. Right. This is actually raw chicken, so we don't want to eat this. So there's 200-gram chicken breasts. Okay, now it might surprise you to know that that's 100 grams of protein right there. 100 grams. So if you're 50 kilos, that's your protein intake for the day. Done like that. So if you folk are struggling saying, "Oh, I can't get my protein in," but I'm looking at food diaries and maybe their salads or their lunches or dinners are containing things like half a chicken breast. Okay, so quite simply, just don't have half a chicken breast, have a whole chicken breast. Having a whole chicken breast is actually more beneficial for most folk anyway, simply because of the amount of protein in there will take you over a threshold that will maximise something called protein synthesis, and that's why we tend to ask you to aim for 25 to 30 grams per portion instead of smaller sort of 15-gram portions. So just consider that's only 2 chicken breasts and that's 100 grams of protein in it. The only reason I know that's because they're 200 grams each, because the packet was 800 grams, so I just used my superpower of maths and divided by 4, and then times by 2. So protein, that's what to aim for. If you're focusing, I'm really worried, I'm not getting my protein target yet, but I don't feel hungry. So if you're overweight, or you're struggling, or you're trying to lose body fat, and you feel like you've suddenly gotten control of a lot of the cravings because of the increased protein intake, but you're not quite at the 2 grams yet, don't worry, that's because you've still got on top of cravings, which is one of the main roles, or one of the main reasons you're doing this in the first place. So if you feel like you're not getting anywhere near as hungry as you used to, and you're feeling full a lot, well done. That means you've done what you're aiming to do. You're aiming to feel fuller, because if you're fuller, then you're less likely to want to eat more, which means you're less likely to overeat, and therefore you're going to be more likely to start losing some body fat. See how it works. So it's not actually that difficult. The challenge or the difficulty is doing it, and doing it daily, and recognising that there's no escape from doing it daily. You can't just view it as a short-term diet, or as soon as you see it as a short-term thing, you're going to fail. Long-term, you're going to fail. As soon as you ask me, for example, is it okay if I have an ice cream Saturday night, that tells me you're not going to succeed long-term if that's how you're thinking, because that's not how it works. An ice cream on Saturday night is not going to determine whether or not you're going to make progress or not. It's what you do day in, day out, week after week after week. And I think that's sometimes what people need to recognise. It's not about an end point and a start point, it's about a continuation. It's a lifestyle thing, you just have to keep doing it. And if you keep doing it, you'll free yourself from the shackles. I see what I did there, that's that song from that class that I think Emma's obsessed with it. But you'll free yourself from the shackles of the whole diet concept, right? So it means that you can then go out quite happily and have an ice cream and a macaroon and some Bounty, which is my favourite thing to have on a Saturday, and know for a fact that it's not going to have a negative impact on your life. The problem is when you then start making these things much more of a staple in your diet, like regular, and these indulgences no longer are indulgences, they're part of your staples. And that's one thing that always sort of confuses me when folks say, "Oh, I'm going to have a wee treat. At what point does the word treat become not a treat? The whole point is that a treat should be something that you treat yourself to. It's an occasional thing. It's an indulgence. But if it's a daily thing, then it's no longer a treat or an indulgence. It's just what you do. So just bear that in mind. So don't overthink the whole protein thing. Just aim to get in top of cravings. Okay, another thing that people were asking was portion control. Yeah, so again, this comes back to what I've just mentioned. For the first few months, just focus on getting into better habits with the protein, the fibre, and the vegetables, that kind of thing. Try to get more of a balanced diet. Okay, so the Eat Well plate is 70% carbs, 15% protein, and 15% fats. How that is called balanced, I have no idea, because obviously it's not balanced. It's 70%, 15-15. A much better balance would be 33-33-33, or 40-40-20, protein, carbs, fats, for example. So once you've got into a consistent routine of eating a lot of nice, nourishing, nutritious protein and vegetables and things, with some treats thrown in, you'll hopefully make some progress. You should make some progress. If you think to yourself, I know I'm doing this right, I'm consistent, I'm definitely consistent, even at the weekends I'm consistent, what's going on, why am I not, why is 3 or 4 months passed and nothing's happened? At that point, it's simply a case of you need to eat less. Okay, it's simply a case of you need to cut down your portion sizes. It's as simple as that. There's nothing else to it. You just need to eat less. And it can be quite easy to not realise that, especially if you're living with a partner or something. Let's suppose your partner's 6 foot and you're 5'5". You definitely shouldn't be eating the same amount. He should be eating more. Either you're eating too much or he's eating too little. So bear that in mind. Like, whoever's within your family, not everyone. You shouldn't all be eating the same amounts, especially if you're trying to lose. Okay, those that are concerned about their weight, those that have got maybe a stone to lose, which is quite a common sort of thing, a lot of you won't lose any weight. Okay, because what we've seen from all the hundreds of people that have done the boot camp is that a lot of them will drop dress sizes, drop trouser sizes, change their composition, which means they'll drop fat and put on muscle. But because muscle takes up less space than gram for gram than fat, it means you can get smaller and more toned, leaner, stronger, more powerful, more athletic, and not lose any weight. Okay, well, if it's only a sort of a stonish type thing that you think you need to lose. I realise that a lot of the time we're focusing more on athletics and performance, and that is what I want to press. Okay, but at the same time, I acknowledge that there's a lot of folk that are here. They're happy to focus on that, but in the back of their mind, they want to lose body fat. And fundamentally, I know that that's something that people really want to. They want to look up. They want to feel and look a bit better. So, and that will help with that. So, these are just things to consider that will help you do that. But it just so happens that these things also help with your performance, because you want to fuel the sessions by eating a lot of protein, and have your carbs around training as opposed to for every meal. Okay, if you have them for every meal, your blood sugar, like as in toast for breakfast, bagel for breakfast or lunch, cereal for breakfast, all these things they're not very satiating, which means your blood sugar is going to go up and down, which is basically a sign that you're still hungry. Okay, and therefore you're then going to be more likely to keep eating and overeat. And that's why I'm not a fan of a high carbohydrate diet for the average person. It's not that carbs make you fat, it's not that they shouldn't be included, it's that if they are 70%, as per the Eat Well plate, if they are 70% of your diet and you're trying to lose weight, you're going to struggle to fight against the hunger hormones that we've talked about. And I think it's hard to argue with that when you look at the fact that we're in the middle of an obesity epidemic. And obviously the current nutrition guidelines aren't really having an effect. So I've only got a minute and a half left. Crap. There's a potato. That's the sort of thing you can have after a workout. A lot of folk have been asking about what to have after workouts. Potatoes, that's 125 grams of a potato, so it's only about 50-60 grams of carbs, which is hardly anything. So that would suit anyone really. And then if you're needing more, then have one at lunch too, especially if you're lean, okay, and you're very active and etc. So just consider your lifestyle. If you sit about a desk all day, you don't need as much. Well, you don't need as much of anything, but I'd still keep the protein high. Talked about kidney beans, fibre, 22p a can. Okay, so fibre is also very satiating. Okay, so that it's good for digestion and it's also very satiating. So in other words, if you have meals that have got fibre in them and protein in them, they're going to be even more satiating than protein alone. Okay, so that's why I'll start joining the dots. We know that these are satiating, so that's why meals that contain vegetables, which contain fibre, and meals that contain protein combined are the best. They're just the best. So just bear that in mind. Lots of fibrous foods, which is basically any vegetable you can think of. Lots of stuff like kidney beans, which is nice and cheap. Carrots, peas, anything else. rice, porridge, plus potatoes. These are the things that you can have around training, and around training they'll fill you up. Right, I'm at 14:45, I better stop, otherwise YouTube's not going to let me upload this. If there's anything else you want me to discuss, I'd rather you just told me via email, and then we could record it like this. Thanks guys, I hope that helped. I know it was a bit rushed, I was kind of